We continue to follow breaking news out of Gaza, where several Americans were among the first group of injured evacuees to leave and enter Egypt through the Rafah crossing. President Biden took to social media to discuss his administration's efforts, saying, quote, "Thanks to American leadership, we secured safe passage for wounded Palestinians and some foreign nationals to exit Gaza. We expect American citizens to exit today, and we expect to see more depart over the coming days. We won't let up working to get Americans out of Gaza." The evacuations coincide with Israel ramping up its airstrikes and ground invasion in northern Gaza. Israel struck the Jabalia refugee camp for the second time in 2 days. Today, the State Department reiterated the urgent need to get Americans out of Gaza.
There are around 400 Americans in Gaza with whom we are in communication who have expressed desire to leave. They have family members as well who have expressed a desire to leave. The total number is around 1,000 people when you count both American citizens and their family members. We are going to give them specific instructions over the next few days about where to go, when to go, how they can get out.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes is joining us now. Nancy, always great to see you. As we know, several Americans were able to evacuate Gaza earlier today. What else are we learning?
Meg, we've been told that a handful of Americans were able to get out today. U.S. officials won't put an exact number on it for security reasons, but they do say that the people who were able to get out through the Rafah gate today included both dual passport holders, so people who held a U.S. or some other country's passport and were most likely dual citizens, and also those, a few dozen of whom were seriously injured and who were being taken to get treatment in Egypt. The White House officials that we've spoken to tell us that this is the product of days of very intense negotiations, including leaders at the very highest levels from the U.S., from Israel, from Egypt, including the President of the United States, who was on the phone this weekend with other leaders, and the Secretary of State. They say this is just the start, that there are more Americans who want and need to get out, and they believe that those Americans will be able to get out over the next few days.
Well, when we were listening to the State Department briefing, he didn't want to get too detailed on the numbers. But are there any details on the number of Americans remaining in Gaza and when they may be able to leave?
So what Secretary Blinken testified to yesterday was that there are about 400 American citizens living in Gaza who want to get out. There may be more who don't want to get out, but they've identified 400 American citizens who do, and they want to get out with their family members, understandably. So that's about 1,000 people that they are trying to help get through the Rafah gate and get safely into Egypt to connect with their family members there. They're hoping to do this as quickly as possible. Blinken said yesterday that the biggest obstacle to doing it quickly has been Hamas. And so they're describing this as a major breakthrough, the fact that they were able to get at least some of them out today.
Yeah, definitely significant there. Nancy, he talked to us a little bit just about how difficult these negotiations are, considering that the strikes are still going on.
Right. Well, first of all, Hamas controls Gaza and they can control who gets out. So that's one major obstacle. Second of all, you need to keep people safe, both inside Gaza as they're trying to depart. And then on the other side, it's not a very an easy crossing into Egypt. Then you've got to coordinate with family members. And we're told that over the past 24 hours, U.S. officials were contacting family members of these Americans to let them know, hey, go to this location in Egypt. We believe we're going to be able to get your family member out. They're going to need to connect with someone on the other side. Also, the people who are getting out need to have the proper paperwork. They need to have those passports. They need to have that documentation to show that they are a foreign national or a U.S. citizen. And obviously, in a situation like this where people are being forced out of their homes, forced out of northern Gaza. Some of their homes are being destroyed. Finding that documentation is not always that easy. And then finally, you've got the challenge, Meg, of the fact that historically Egypt has been really reluctant to take any refugees in situations like this from Gaza, because what they fear is that if they allow people to flow into Egypt from Gaza during a crisis, that Israel won't allow those individuals to return to Gaza afterwards, and that Egypt will be left with a bunch of Palestinian refugees. In this case, the reason that they were willing to let some of these individuals out is because they are U.S. citizens, because they are foreign nationals. They're not planning to stay in Egypt. They're planning to connect with loved ones there and head elsewhere.
And Nancy, we just got the decision from the Federal Reserve that interest rates will be holding steady. We know that President Biden has been addressing the economy today. At the same time, we have this war that is playing out. How does he navigate these two different topics at the same time?
Well, the president has always argued that foreign policy is one of his strengths, that he has decades-long relationships with some of the people who he is negotiating with, and that enables him to form coalitions to try to affect change and to make things possible like what we saw today at the Rafah gate. But there's no question that the high interest rates are one of the biggest challenges for this administration. They know that they're hurting people's ability to buy homes. In some cases, they don't want to sell homes because they're worried that they'll take on a big new mortgage in their next purchase. And so they'd like to see that rate come down. At the same time, the president has committed that he is not going to try to influence the Fed in any way. So he would be unlikely to weigh in on the Fed's decision in any way. And privately, White House officials will say that in some cases, the economy is a victim of its own success because hiring has been so strong, because wage increases are going up, because unemployment is down. Those are some of the factors that are keeping the inflation rate, or the interest rate rather, high.
All right. Nancy Cordes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Meg.